Hello, and welcome to another edition of Magic EdTech's Ask the Experts. My name is Ray Alba, and today I'll be your host. With me is my esteemed colleague, Anshula Dhingra, who's our senior managing consultant for learning design, and she has extensive experience in this space. And today we're going to discuss a very serious topic, a topic that's also close to me, and it's about learning loss. And today, hopefully, we'll have some answers to that, how we can remediate that, and what you could do. Anshula, maybe tell me about what is really learning loss, and how big of an issue is it?
Hey Ray, hi. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for this exciting introduction. Before I start talking about this, I thought a lot about learning loss, and as a matter of fact, we thought about doing this kind of a video about 2-3 weeks ago. And that's when I decided to do this video, I was thinking more about learning loss from the point of view of a learning design architect. And I was thinking about learning technology. I was thinking about, the numeracy and literacy loss that the learners have had. Also the adult learners, what is the loss in terms of, competency frameworks and, their competence to be able to join the workforce, and what is going to be the impact. And as I got these weeks, and I thought more about this, I started thinking more also as a parent, as a learner myself, and as instructors, and as institutions. And when I thought from all these angles, I think of learning loss as something different. And I'm not too sure if I really want to use the word loss here. I'm not even sure if there is a loss, because we begin with loss, and then I think of maybe it's just a lag, maybe it's just a matter of time, and with the right techniques we will cover this up. As I move forward, I think also about the learning gap, which is the social, the psychological, the mental, the economic gap that existed in the societies, the inequities that existed in the societies, and so to say, this whole situation which we call a learning loss has brought everything to the surface. It has further widened those gaps, or rather thrown spotlight on those gaps, right? From loss to lag to gap, I now think of this as no term, but I think there is a tectonic shift in how we as learners and learning providers are working. There's a lot of change that's happening, because you can't really look at loss as a loss, because it is not only about literacy, numeracy, job skills, and economics alone. There's a lot more than that. And I think, yes, there is a lag. Yes, there could also be a loss to some extent, but I think it's a combination of a lot of things that we are dealing with, at this point in time. So when I think of as a parent, and you and I have been in e-learning for long, and yet, as parents, we do realize that, one is screen time. Screen time has been an issue. We've been discussing about screen time for a lot of time in the past as well. And now when education comes and sits in your laptops, were we comfortable? Were we happy? Did we think of it as a makeshift arrangement? Yes, we did think of it as a makeshift arrangement. We did not perhaps encourage our children, younger children, older children to really take online classes, because we thought this would pass, and it's okay to miss some lessons here and there, because screen time was a big issue, right? I mean, as a parent, there was a change adoption issue. So that also kind of contributed to some kind of loss. But then I can't say that screen time is an invalid issue. It's a valid issue at the same time. When I think about educators at the same time, educators have been used to, slotting, putting people in slots of grades. And within those grades, what should I be able to do within a certain grade to be able to go to the next grade? When I go to the next grade, I again have a certain set of skills that I need to master, and then the next grade. And therefore, there is this ripple effect, which we are really worried about, which we are terming as loss. then, of course, as educationists, also it's not easy to kind of shift from a quantitative method of grading to a more qualitative method of grading, because at this point in time, I think that may be required. Not all educationists can be great orators or can really take video lectures. That does not mean that they don't take video lectures, but that also means that they can adopt certain methods, or they can take care of this issue by really kind of combining certain techniques or methods or technology, right? Then when I think of the learners themselves, and we know how stressful it has been on younger children and older children and almost adults, it is not easy. I mean, so for example, in India right now, so grade 12 or board exam for class 12 have been postponed. These almost adult 17-18-year-olds, they have been preparing for these exams, and they are very important exams. They have been preparing for these exams since last April, and now we are almost going into June. So it is it is almost like 14-15 months that they're continuing to study. And I don't know, when I look at my son, I don't know what he's studying, because how much can you cram the same topic again and again? So there are issues from a learner's point of view, also from an adult learning point of view, from professional learning point of view. There is lack of confidence. There is unreadiness for professional development. Not sure if everybody, we will have people ready by as the world opens, we'll have people ready for jobs that are going to come up. So there are a lot of things that we talk about when we talk about this loss, and I think in some sections of society there have been issues with devices not being available, with Wi-Fi connectivity not being available, with children having to concentrate and make meaning of whatever is going on through their laptops. But then, having said that, I would also like to say that if there was no technology, if the teachers and education institutions had not really, come up in a smart way, we would not have been having this discussion, because, this discussion would not make any sense. We would have been talking about no learning or unlearning or negative learning. So I'm happy that we were having this discussion, because we did implement certain solutions, but then we also realized that while we were implementing those solutions, there were gaps. There were gaps in accessibility norms. Accessibility has been more by compliance and little by design. And it is critical that we start looking at those kind of things as well. So it is about gaps in numeracy, literacy, general knowledge. It is gaps in confidence to be able to join the workforce. It is gaps in how I teach, how I change my teaching methods. It is gaps in how how parenting is changing. It is a lot of things that we need to discuss about, and a lot of solutions that we need to bring in as a society.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I love the personal aspects you brought to it, given the fact that I am a parent, as I mentioned to you personally. And we had our son just recently take his SATs, and it was a great deal of kind of prep for that. It's also taking a number of AP exams, which are advanced placement tests here in the United States. And basically, everything, all his instruction has been largely online. Some opportunity for some hybrid learning. And the sense of what we're seeing from him is more a kind of willingness to kind of learn in a different way, because for most of his life he's been learning residential, and the idea of a computer was either to complete some assignments that he couldn't do in class, or to kind of play games and have for entertainment. So when his whole world came colliding, and as a sophomore, now junior in high school, he had to kind of rethink and get redisciplined. And I think also the same thing for teachers. And I think the gap for them, at least for my son and anecdotally, maybe others too, is that discipline was never there before because it was never really an issue, right? For our daughter, who's now 12, it's a much different kind of situation, more malleable, and she was able to adopt. And I think also in reference to, she's now in 6th grade, and in her school, I think they did a pretty good job in terms of they realized very early on they just can't lecture students, that they've basically provided some kind of video-based kind of lecture, and then using the class time as the opportunity to interact with other students and do breakout rooms. It's not to say it's not happening in my son's high school or with any classes he's taking, but you touched on a few points I think were very close to me, that there needs to be more sufficient professional development, and also more kind of the students understand that if you're doing online or remote instruction, this is how you would do it, and this is how you become disciplined. So training on their part as well. But what you hit on was that it's not like 1918, where there was a complete negative loss, and and that created the rise of homeschooling type businesses like Caliber Education. So, it's a pretty big issue, as we could all agree here. And I think that people looking at this will probably say the same thing. I know a month ago I wrote a pretty viral comment on remote learning and some of the gaps that I'm seeing. So, what are the ways that this could be tackled? How can we deal with learning loss? What are the methods, some of the tools, and your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I'll probably take a longer route to reach what we can do, because we're all evolving and we're all learning, and we'll all try different methods, and we'll take up just one perspective. So one is that I want to touch upon what may not work to begin with. I think, and this is my opinion. I mean, it is debatable. Extensive tutoring, cutting down on holidays, trying to cover more in less time. So, for example, if my grade 3 skills have not been completed, and therefore, when a grade 3 student goes to grade 4 with half skills attained, or with half a mastery of the skill sets, and you have what happens is that your target doubles, right? Which means that if my grade 4 skills are the same as they were, or they were supposed to be, then which means that the learner is supposed to cover double of what they would ideally cover, right? I mean, which means that they are working to learn more than they would have learned in a regular ideal world, right? So, but I think it is important, and it really depends. I mean, I think solutions will be different for young learners to semi-adults, and for adult learners the solutions will be different. But beginning from adult learners, I think we should not look at covering up everything within or less than a year. I think this will further enlarge the gaps, right? For higher grades, I think the solutions can be different. I know, because they have less time and there is more to cover, and they have to get on, and they have to meet the world very soon. So solutions can be rather different. They can be more personalized, they can be more adaptive, they can be more relevance based, they can be more strength based, and not that everybody studies everything or everyone has to learn everything. They can be more specialization based. And somehow, I don't know why, I am thinking of a book that I read long time ago. It's called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And it was written by Paulo Freire. He was a Brazilian education reformist, and it was written long ago in the 60s. His political social condition was very different from what it is right now. It's a different situation altogether, but somehow, what he said resonates with me. He talked about something known as the banking model of instruction. and he said that the teachers deposit information into the minds of the learner, and the learner, then kind of collects it with them. It is the same as rote learning, and checking on whether the learner is ready for examination or the learner is ready for life. These are two different things. I think to some extent we have to gear up our systems, our methods, and I'm sure that the educationists around the world are already working on it. We need to gear up and start looking at people's readiness for world and not just readiness for examination. And I know that in segments this has already been taken care of, and I think from a technique standpoint or from a thought standpoint, these are the two things that we need to really take care of as we move to a great integration between technology and education. And why I say this, because we've seen this has happened. Technology has stood by our side, right? And when we talk about transmedia storytelling, and transmedia storytelling, by the way, is more of an edutainment or an entertainment kind of a topic where the same kind of story is repeated across different platforms. So people recall, remember, there is more reinforcement, there is more recall and things like that. I think technology, cloud computing, when they come together, they can really bring all of these pieces together. The other thing which is a very old concept, and which we have been talking about, is microlearning. And I think microlearning is something that we need to start working on now from a different perspective altogether. Talk about screen fatigue, or talk about boredom, or talk about continuous learning. Microlearning, if tackled well, if managed well, if designed well, can really solve these problems. And for a lot of us, for parents, for teachers, for learners, everybody, I think microlearning, if designed well, and we can go into details of how, but that can be a different video altogether, but microlearning can really solve problems in a big way. And coupled with microlearning, what I think of is a more of a multidisciplinary approach, wherein, rather than focusing on one microlearning module on mathematics and one on English and one on social sciences and one on sciences, why not just to correct myself, why not integrate these topics? Why not use a more problem-based approach? And because we need, and yes, we need to cover more in less time, and that if we integrate disciplines, I think that would help in a much better way. Talking of learning modalities, I think I'm a big fan of video-based learning. But yet again, if carefully designed, videos are a great hybrid between synchronous and asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning is very important. Teachers teach learning. Teachers manage learning best. And if we supplement their learning, supplement their tasks, their teaching with video-based learning, I think we can help learners replay the videos again and again. So that idea of being able to attain mastery and then moving ahead, it's like videos can really help us do that, right? Videos can really help us gain more empathy. Videos can really help with storytelling, creativity, and of course this has to be done more carefully, designed very carefully, with sound instructional design practices. And yet again, when I think of constructivism, behaviorism, cognitivism, these are the three theories that we instructional designers have always sweared by. But as of today, I think I would keep humanism and connectivism as two primary theories. And I think these should be in our checklist when we are designing all of our learning modalities, all of our learning products. I think chatbots are a great help when it comes to, just in time job aids, just in time help, just in time information. And chatbots can be used also for young learners as much as they can be used for adult learners. Experiential learning has taken a big hit. And XR, immersive learning, can really help with discovery learning for our young learners, because in some parts of the world, school is still far away. And we want them to get, experiences. We want them to understand. We want them to be able to still discover, to be able to relate to the world as it will be, as it was, and more as it will be, because there will be some changes for sure. And and for adult learners, I think risk assessment, disaster management, medicine, engineering, these disciplines can really utilize XR capabilities, and this can be really helpful. There should be more personalization. We should not look at only segmenting people in grades, in standards, in their abilities, by their age. I think everybody is different. Accessibility is very important, very critical at this point in time. And I think to some extent we were not ready with respect to accessibility, in some, and this has been an experience. I think a lot of us were not ready. We have levels of accessibility. Say, okay, you want accessibility to this level or that level or the highest level. I think it should be by design. It should be in everything that we design. And I think those are my thoughts on learning. I don't know if I want to call it learning loss. I think there's a lot that's happening. And another aspect that I want to touch upon is the fact that, say, for example, my recent experience has been that young teenagers from 14 to 17, because schools are closed, because COVID is on in India, these children have become volunteers. They are working to get oxygen, they're working to get remdesivir, and they're working to get all the medication, they're working to get hospital beds. And they are not only enthusiastic about it, they're also facing disappointments, they're also facing death, they're also facing success. I think, and as a parent, I know, and also as to some extent, and from being in the learning industry, I realize that these things are also important. We keep our kids far away from these realities, but this is also important, and there has been some learning. And I'm happy that we're able to discuss this. I'm happy that we brought some solutions at the start of the year last year, at the start of, not the year, but at the start of the pandemic last year. But I'm happy that we were able to bring in some solutions. So we are able to bring some problems to the scum, and therefore, because we are able to bring those problems to the scum, we can, all of us together, can work towards resolving them.
And I agree. So if they were for me personally, what I'm seeing as real takeaways here as ways to how to minimize this or to kind of help tackle this, to really look at, microlearning as a possibility, so that the students aren't, or students even, or those that are professional aren't, faced with the daunting task of having to learn too much at one time, and they can actually get to topics or disciplines in a kind of very concise way that could help with some sort of personalized learning path, right? Integrating videos into that learning experience, contextualized videos that describe concepts. And anecdotally, I could say for our son, for his calculus, he would defer to, not to promote anybody here, but Khan Academy quite often if he was confused in the concept, and other aspects of YouTube Granted, some of them weren't so great, but at least he was able to kind of get some of that reinforcement, which I think is kind of critical. When you were saying, one of the things that you touched on, which I do agree with, are chatbots, but I would even love to see more kind of like that live person, experience where I know, again, we're all working from home, and you have children, I have children. Middle of the day or at the end of their school day, I'm still working. They come in with a problem because they don't know who to contact. It's like, hey, Dad, how do I solve this issue? Or I'm trying to do this lab, and it's like my wife or myself trying to, help them out. Adaptivity, obviously with the likes of AI and in machine learning, I think that could really help with some of the things that could help at least assess, where students might be. But also, you're right, I think you don't want to remove that kind of human aspect as well, because at the end of the day, the teacher is the best solution in at least assessing what where they think their students are at, because some students just don't perform well, and it's hard for a lot of the maybe some might not a lot to kind of evaluate and provide some kind of like automated bias on that. And accessibility, I think I agree with you there. I know that here in New York, where I'm located, there's been a great push to address that, and to provide at least from the other aspects, providing students with not just accessible resources, but also look at the other aspects of making sure that there was free Wi-Fi for students, or they have devices. And granted, it's still challenging there because New York is arguably one of the biggest school districts here, at least in the United States, New York City, that is, where I am. And but I think they did a pretty good job. I think where there could be some help is obviously the professional development you keyed on earlier. So those are kind of my closing thoughts of what I was able to get from this session here. I'm not sure if you have any kind of closing thought you'd like to provide, but
yes, we're all looking forward to go back to school. I think school is best. That's my closing thought. I think school is best. And whatever solutions that we aim to design as learning technologists, I think it is the solutions have to be human-centered, and playing in the sun, playing in sand, getting dirty, getting soiled in school is something that nothing can replace. So I think we are looking for a world where we will take advantage of everything that we've learned, and we've learned a lot in the last year.
Well, thank you. On that note, we're going to have to conclude this Ask the Experts episode. Anshula, thank you so much. Give a hug to your family, virtual from me, obviously, because I'm here in New York. And hopefully when this pandemic is all over and we're all healthy, we can get together and meet. Do you come to New York? Or I go to Delhi, where you're located at. And thank you again. And thank you, audience, for tuning in. I'm new to this, so hopefully you'll tune in again. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.